Why the Warriors are right where they want to be. As you all know, the Golden State Warriors have had many ups and downs during the season, and they currently rank 7th in the Western Conference. A lot of Warriors fans are not happy with the placement. However, in today's video, we're going to be going through 5 reasons why this is perfect for the Golden State Warriors to be the 7th place, and how this is actually going to help them win another NBA championship. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Golden State Warriors content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. Also, a lot of my videos get demonetized from YouTube, so I do these videos absolutely free for you guys. So if you'd like to buy me a coffee so I can continue to stay up all night editing these videos, that would mean the world by clicking the link in my description or also pinned comment and get a free shout out next video. But let's get into the first reason, and the first reason being is that NBA standings do not matter as much as you think they do. Now, as you all know, it is great to be the #1 team in the Western Conference or the Eastern Conference. However, when it comes playoff time, it is a completely different ball game. A lot of NBA players have said this, and even Draymond Green himself has said that he isn't too worried about getting the #1 spot in the Western Conference due to the fact that the playoffs is a different game. And it really is, because you are going potentially 7 games with a whole nother team, and that team is going to be making strategies against you in order to beat you. And that's why it is a completely different type of style of play when it comes to playing in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. Now, the Western Conference is obviously very, very stacked, but the times that the Golden State Warriors have actually won NBA championships, they weren't actually the #1 in their own conference. If we look at the history of NBA championships, a lot of teams that won the NBA championship weren't actually the #1 team in their own conference, and that has happened also with the Golden State Warriors. If we look at their most recent win with the 2022 Golden State Warriors roster, they were actually only ranked 3rd place. If we even go a couple of years back in 2017 with Kevin Durant, they were only 2nd place as well, with the Houston Rockets actually above them in the Western Conference. So this has happened time and time again, and the placement of the playoffs when it comes to 1st all the way to 8th don't really matter as much as a lot of people think. What does matter at the end of the day is playoff experience, and that is something that this Golden State Warriors team have. So if we look at the roster, we start off with Stephen Curry, 4-time NBA champ, and also has almost 100 games to his name playing in the playoffs. So that's a lot of experience of him, and that's why he's able to get the job done day in, day out in the playoffs, especially in the NBA Finals. Klay Thompson almost close to hitting 100 games as well in the playoffs, and he's a 4-time NBA champion. We also have Andrew Wiggins, who's a champion, and he also has a couple of playoff games to his name. The list really continues to go on to Draymond Green, who's played with Klay and Steph all of their time in the playoffs, and then the list really does go on from there to Jordan Poole, Kevon Looney, who's a 3-time champ, and then we also have others such as Andre Iguodala, who's a 4-time champ as well. So there is a lot to it, and a lot of people really don't understand just how capable this Golden State Warriors team is. Experience is what matters in the playoffs, and I do think this is what's going to help them far, whether they're 7th place, whether they're 5th place, or even the #1 spot. The playoff experience that they do have really does show that they have more playoff experience than all 8 teams that are currently in the Western Conference in the top 8, and I do think they are capable of not only just making it very far in the playoffs, but winning another NBA championship. The second reason is that the Golden State Warriors would verse the harder teams later on in the playoffs. Now, the reason why this is so important, because as you all know, the Golden State Warriors are currently ranked 7th, but if they can get themselves into the 5th or 6th place, I think that is a perfect position for the Golden State Warriors to win it all. Like I mentioned before, teams in the past have actually won NBA championships from not even being in the #1 or even #2 spot in their conference. We've seen Milwaukee Bucks, who are actually ranked 3rd, Golden State Warriors, for example, and we also have other teams like Toronto Raptors when they won the NBA championship as of recent. And the reason why is because they end up versing the harder teams later on in the playoffs when it comes to semifinals time. And I do think the reason why that is so important is because if Golden State Warriors go up against a young team like Grizzlies, the Warriors will always be able to win, and this is where playoff experience comes into play again. The playoffs is a very hard time because you are playing a lot of games back to back to back, and a lot of these younger guys, although they do have the athleticism, they don't have the actual skill to be able to last the whole playoff series. And I do think that's where Warriors were able to win, especially last season. They went up against Grizzlies. They weren't the favorite to win, but the reason why they were is because they versed them later on in the series, and they were able to get the job done due to the fact that they brought it to game 6s or 7s, where those were the deciding factors. And you see the Warriors did that over and over again against their competitors. And that's what makes it very important when it comes to what the Warriors are actually doing. If they get into that 5th or 6th spot, spot, they would be versing someone around their same rankings, and then they would go up against maybe the Nuggets or the Grizzlies, who are the current top 2 teams later on, maybe in the quarterfinals or even in the semifinals, which is very, very important to go through. So I think this is really important because it could also mean that they do get an upset. Maybe the Nuggets lose to the number 8 seed right now, which is Utah Jazz, or Grizzlies lose to someone like the Clippers. So any of these things can also happen before the Warriors have to verse them. So I do think sometimes being in the middle of the pack of your conference is actually a smarter idea, because you have somewhat of an easier path to the finals and can get further on in the playoffs. So I think this really is important because the Golden State Warriors, they are a very experienced team with having Iguodala, Clay, Steph, Andrew Wiggins, all these players that know how to play in the playoffs and especially know what it takes to win an NBA championship. And that's why I think they will definitely take advantage of this heading into the playoffs. And this is why Steve Kerr would definitely want this to happen, especially for the future of this Golden State Warriors team into the postseason. Draymond Green actually said in an interview that he hates the pressure that comes with being the number 1 seed and winning the NBA championship. And I think that's what makes this so important as well. There is a lot of pressure that comes being the number 1 seed that you have to perform in and day out. If they're ranked 5th or 6th like the Warriors were, right now, or they were ranked 3rd like they were last season, they obviously have a chip on their shoulder and they got nothing to lose at this point. The Nuggets or the Grizzlies have everything to lose, while Warriors have everything to gain. The third reason is that the Golden State Warriors have time to experiment with many different things. Now I think this is really important because, as you all know, the Golden State Warriors have been able to string against some wins and also have strung a couple of losses here and there. And I think this is very important because what the Golden State Warriors and especially Steve Kerr is trying to do is to test out different rotations, test out different lineups to see what is the best for when it comes playoff time. And we've seen some very astounding things from a lot of different players. Stephen Curry, of course, is still playing at a high level. Klay Thompson is slowly getting back there. But where we see a huge increase is definitely in Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole. Their usage rate so far this season has definitely skyrocketed, and they are definitely being used more and more as time has gone on. And you also have the new role players such as Dante DiVincenzo, Anthony Lamb, Kuminga, Moody starting to get more minutes, so that is very important as well. So there are a lot of new people on this roster that are getting more and more minutes, and they need to be able to adapt to the game that the Golden State Warriors are trying to play, and also adapt to it to when the time comes in the NBA playoffs. We also have young prospects such as James Wiseman and Patrick Baldwin Jr., who are also getting a lot more minutes as time has gone on, and Steve Kerr definitely is using this time in the regular season to test out many different things to put their best foot forward for when the playoffs come around. I really do think a team like the Warriors isn't really too worried. As long as they make the playoffs, they know they can win another NBA championship. And I think that's why Stephen Curry, Clay, the list really does go on and on, where they're not really pointing fingers at anyone. They're not really saying any big problems. No one's backstabbing anyone, because due to the fact that they are still in the playoff picture, and that's all that matters at the end of the day, they know they can get the job done. So Steve Kerr is going to continue to test out different things, and I think it will actually pay dividends for them in the future, because we are starting to see a lot of other players come out the limelight, such as Anthony Lamb, Kuminga, Moody, Kevon Looney's now starting getting more, and I do think it is going to pay a huge dividend moving forward. The fourth reason is the core is still playing at a very high level. Now, a lot of people think that the Golden State Warriors are playing bad, but I do think there is definitely more to it. I think they just need to work more together due to the fact that there are a lot of new role players that have come into this roster, and they are just adapting to each other. But the main focus is definitely the core of Draymond, Clay, and Steph, and also maybe even add Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole now to that mix, and whether they're playing well, that will honestly set them up for a great future ahead, especially heading into these playoffs. Now, we obviously have seen it with Steph. Steph is averaging some numbers that he hasn't averaged ever since his peak years in 2015 and 2016. He's currently averaging 29 points per game, while also grabbing 6.4 rebounds and 6.3 assists he is dishing out. And he's shooting a high 42% from the three, while also attempting 12 threes per game, which is the highest ever in his career. We also have Klay Thompson now, who's shooting a lot more and shooting at a very consistent basis. He's averaging 20 points, while also grabbing 4 rebounds and 2.5 assists, but he has an effective field goal percentage of 55%. So he's honestly gotten better since last season. As you all know, Klay Thompson received 2 season-ending injuries, so it has been some time for him to be back where he is at. Last season he was averaging 20 points. However, he was only shooting around 28% from the 3 and around 35% from the 2-point line. Now that's completely changed. Klay Thompson is now shooting 40% from the 3 and is also shooting 45% from the 2-point area, and I do think this is really important to actually understand that his efficiency has really helped this team so far. Andrew Wiggins, on the other hand, has also improved drastically with these 3-point shooting, where he's averaging 17 points per game while also shooting 41% from the 3 while attempting 6.7 threes. So he's actually shooting more effective than Jordan Poole and is shooting almost roughly the same amount of threes as well. So there is a lot to this, and I do think when it comes to the core, the fact that they are still playing well and continue to play well definitely will pay dividends in the future and hopefully bring home another NBA championship. The fifth reason is the lower they can make their ranking, the higher their draft pick will be for next year. And I think this is really good because, as you all know, the Golden State Warriors are really not worried with their ranking. As long as they make it into the playoffs, they are very confident that they can win another NBA championship. And the reason why this is so important, because if they go around 8th or 7th in the playoffs, or maybe even 6th, they actually have a higher pick for next season when it comes to the odds of the lottery. So they probably won't get into the lottery. However, I do think for them getting a high, 20th pick or 25th pick would honestly be very beneficial for the Golden State Warriors, and it would help them in the long term. The Golden State Warriors right now are in a phase where they're looking to get more young players as Steph, Clay, and also Draymond Green continue to get older. So it is really important to actually understand on what they are trying to do, not only for the short term but for the long term as well, because they are looking to get players to not only complement them but also help them in the future for when it comes to what they are trying to build. Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, Kevon Looney, these players are probably going to be the next big three when Steph, Clay, and Draymond, unfortunately, when they leave. And I do think these three definitely are a great pick in order to build around, and they're going to need some great rookies to build around that. Next year's draft class looks very good, and I do think that the Golden State Warriors can get a lot of great picks from it if they choose wisely. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon. Peace.